The Dyson V11 Outsize, other than being pretty large, is a successor to the popular Dyson V11. And in this review I'll be comparing both models and furthermore seeing if it is worth your money. Now in this respect, the Dyson Outsize can be found for around £650 in the UK, whilst in the US it's around $700. By comparison, its smaller sibling, the V11 Absolute, can be found for around £600 and $600 respectively. If you're interested in either of these vacuum cleaners or indeed some of its competitors, which I'll be naming throughout this review, do check it out in the links in the description below. Now before proceeding with this comparison and this review, if you do like this video, give it a like and of course subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you can keep up with the latest reviews from my channel. And if you're on social media, I'm on pretty much every single platform you can think of, but I use Twitter and Instagram as my main platforms as to share my reviews, so if you want to give me a follow, I'd very much appreciate it. And furthermore, if you're interested in keeping up with the latest news or reviews of hybrid or all-electric vehicles, do check out TotallyEV. I'm essentially reviewing a new car every single week, so if you want to keep up with that, and also kind of gives you an indication of how the industry has moved on, specifically given Dyson, funnily enough, wanted to invest in the electric vehicle market and ended up pulling out a few years ago. So your support would be equally appreciated in that domain. So first off, I want to talk about what you get in the box, and what you can see over here is what you get with the V11 Outsize, which is absolutely comprehensive in terms of what Dyson have thought out. You've got the main unit itself, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit in terms of using it. You've got the wand, you've got a little attachment tool which goes onto the wand, you've got the V11 Outsize larger unit, and as you can see they actually include a foam roller tip as well. However, this isn't as large as the Outsize, the larger one, so it's quite intriguing that they've basically added the one from the V11. Now this does mean that you can interchange them, so if you do have the V11 or one of the ones which uses the same sort of mechanism, you can interchange it with the V11 Outsize. So I don't know if you would have that scenario, but if you were, then you can see even Dyson are including the one that comes with the V11 Outsize. Nothing has really changed from the regular V11 in terms of the unit heads themselves. And here you've got a stair cleaning tool, you've got also a means of kind of wall mounting it and having a charger. If you so wish, you can charge the battery elsewhere, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And you've got a variety of different tools over here, and the one that I actually quite like is this one, where it's kind of like a flexible hose, where one of the biggest problems with the V11 Outsize, given its sheer size, it makes it a little bit harder to clean around the corner, for example, whereas these tools over here make it a little bit more, well, a little bit easier, and actually kind of one-up its smaller sibling in this respect, because you can attach this tool in and then basically go around the corner and clean, whereas you couldn't do that with the regular V11. With that said, it's still annoying that they haven't integrated a trigger that you can actually hold, so despite you having this kind of tool, you still have to press a button and then plug it in and then go ahead and clean, which can make it a little bit awkward. Now indeed, in comparison to the regular V11, they've actually updated the trigger design. It actually is a little bit more ergonomic to press, where it kind of feels a little bit more like a trigger, whereas in comparison to the regular V11, which kind of has like a cut design, it means that the V11 Outsize, when it comes to using it, makes it a little bit easier to press. Again, I just wish there was a latch mechanism that was integrated on a Dyson product. Unfortunately, that's still not the case with the V11 Outsize. Now you can see over here in terms of the two different units, and of course one is larger than the other, and that's because the V11 Outsize has got a much larger bin. It's 150% bigger in real terms. That means the regular V11 has a 0.76 litre bin, whereas the V11 Outsize has a 1.7 litre bin, which therefore means that you can clean for longer, of course battery permitting, and therefore allow you, well, less trips to the dustbin. Now on that subject, however, it does mean that your dustbin has to be kind of appropriately sized. Now I have a small little dustbin that's comprised within my kitchen sink, and this makes it a little bit awkward to use with the Dyson V11 Outsize because of its larger out head. It means that where the dust is coming out is larger, and therefore the diameter, you have to kind of aim it a little bit more precisely into the bin in comparison to the V11, the regular V11, which has just a smaller outlet bin latch. which just makes it just a little bit more convenient on a day-to-day operation. And I know this might be a little subjective and on a use case-by-case basis, but if you're someone like myself, then you'll actually find that emptying the bin of the regular V11 is just a little bit more intuitive. Now, on the other hand, the V11 Outsize does have a major selling point for me for a Dyson product. For the first time, as far as I'm aware, we've got a removable battery, and yes, that means you can remove the battery and charge it independently from the V11 Outsize unit, which isn't something that's capable in the regular V11, unless you were of course to disassemble it and things like that. But just this removable battery design just is great, not only in terms of charging it, in terms of using it, because I don't have a wall mount, so I don't wall mount when I'm charging these units. I have them basically in their, well, in their design in the V11, whereas with the V11 Outsize I can just remove it from my cupboard with the battery on its own and just charge the battery independently and quite conveniently next to a wall socket. And I can't stress this enough, this is great also in terms of longevity, because if your battery was to degrade, you can always purchase one separately. As far as I'm aware, you can't currently purchase one, but I'm sure Dyson will either offer the option and or you can buy removable batteries via third-party solutions. So it's just nice to see that Dyson have integrated finally a removable battery on their V11 line. Now, I'm not sure how this will affect people as well, and kind of following on from the battery design is that if you were to place the V11 Outsize placed like this, it will often fall over just because of the weight that's by the head, whereas with the regular V11 you don't have that problem. Of course, it depends on if you've got really long pile carpet, then it'll probably lean over, but essentially it means that the V11 can sit up, whereas the V11 Outsize, well, just struggles to do so, and sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but more often than that it's going to fall over. So therefore, if you're going to be charging the unit outside of the wall mount, you're going to probably want to place it on its side like this. Very small point to make, but something that, you know, it might be, not say a deal breaker, but something that you might want to consider if you're looking at the Outsize versus the regular V11. Now, while that use case is very small, there is of course a sizable difference in terms of the actual units themselves. Now, the Outsize weighs around 3.5 kilograms, whilst the V11, the regular one, weighs around 3.01 kilograms, so making it just a little bit lighter and easier to maneuver. And indeed, the regular V11, at least for me, I found it to be a lot easier to maneuver. And therefore, if you're going to go in like small, tight spaces, still to this date, I've yet to find a vacuum cleaner that can really outperform the V11 and its torque head or high torque drive unit to be outperformed in maneuverability. I think Dyson nailed it when it comes to this design. Of course, there is a reason why you're getting the V11 other than the bigger bin capacity, and that's due to the larger size head, which therefore will cover a larger area. So it does have its pros and cons. It is less easier to maneuver, but equally is going to clean a larger surface area when you're doing a single pass in comparison to the V11 or any of its other cordless vacuum competitors. Now, elsewhere, Dyson have maintained the kind of scraping tool that you get when it comes to emptying the bin. I just find this really intuitive and really well done, and it just makes for clearing dust from the inner part of the compartment extremely well. Yet again, it's something that I haven't found one of its competitors to really kind of address in this domain. Most of its competitors have kind of got a latch design, and then you kind of have to scrape out and get your hands dirty. That's not the case with the Dyson V11 or the V11 Outsize. I'm just pleased to say that it's come across to the V11 Outsize. It just makes for emptying the bin very intuitive. Now, finally, in terms of a design standpoint of view, they're pretty much identical, other than the obvious that the Outsize is slightly larger. The V11 Outsize and the V11 look absolutely identical, other than slightly different colour ones, and in this respect there's no complaints whatsoever. I think aesthetically they look really nice. Furthermore, with the little LCD found at the back, you still get that kind of digital indication as to what power mode you're on. If you've got blockage, it kind of gives you a little indication as to what is being blocked or what's happened and what you should potentially look into. And even when you're charging it, it gives you an indication of how much percentage it's at. Whereas when you do take out the battery, you're not going to have an indication of how many percentage it's at. You'll just have a light indicator when it's charging, and when it's fully charged, then that indicator will be will be off, but through the LCD display it means that you can kind of visualize that. In terms of the filter itself, it's very easy to remove, very much like the regular Dyson V11, just kind of a twist and turn, and yes, it is different just due to the size. Very easy to wash out, and of course you wash it out and leave it out for 24 hours to dry, or a little bit more, and make sure it's completely dry before putting it back in. And again, it's a great design in my opinion in terms of what Dyson have been able to achieve with this kind of filter design. Now with that all in mind, we get on to testing, and first off, it's worth bearing in mind the noise that these vacuum cleaners produce. So in this respect, what I've done is place the camera and the microphone in the exactly same location and gone from A to B, both of the V11 and the V11 Outsize. Headphone users, you might want to bear this in mind to maybe tune it down a little bit in case it's a little bit piercing to your ears. And I'll also be cycling to the Lupe Pure Cordless vacuum cleaner, which I recently reviewed as well, so it gives you an indication of how it compares to one of its major rivals. Now with the test out of the way, I'm not sure if it will come across accurately over YouTube, but I can say that the V11 and the V11 Outsize are pretty much equivalent in terms of the noise. If anything, in the boost mode, the Outsize is slightly higher pitched, but it's so small that you're not going to really notice the difference. As for its competitors, specifically the Lupe Pure Cordless, it is far less higher pitched in comparison to the Lupe, in this respect making for late night cleaning or early morning cleaning sessions a little bit more acceptable, I'd actually say socially acceptable, using the V11 in comparison to the likes of the Lupe Pure Cordless or some of its alternative competitors. Now moving on, we've got battery life, and one of its key selling points is that it's got a removable battery, but of course, how long does a single battery run for? Well, in my test on carpet, the V11 and the V11 Outsize were pretty much identical, whereby both achieved around, on their maximum mode, 14 minutes, on their medium or auto mode, 28 minutes, and on their eco modes, 67 minutes. By comparison, if we look at the Lupe Pure Cordless, it lasts 13, 30 and 49 minutes respectively, therefore meaning that the Dyson machines last for a little bit longer, depending on the mode that you're using, of course, and the eco mode will be the one that you can get most out of the vacuum cleaner. And now we get on to performance, and here Dyson claimed that the V11 Outsize has actually got more power than its smaller sibling, specifically in its max power mode. Now breaking it down here, the V11 Outsize in its lowest power mode has got 24.9 air watts. By comparison, the regular V11 has 26 air watts. In its medium power mode, it's here where the V11 Outsize really steps up at 49.5 air watts. By comparison with the regular V11, which has 38.6 air watts, and at its maximum power mode, you've got 220 air watts of power in comparison to the 185 achieved by the regular V11. Now, naturally, you would think over here that the V11 Outsize is going to outperform its smaller sibling in pretty much every single test, but that's not what I found. In fact, I found that the two vacuum cleaners were pretty much identical. It was very hard to distinguish between the two when it comes to performance, at least real life testing. So in this respect, even in a kind of controlled way, I couldn't see a difference in terms of how both vacuum cleaners differed, be it on hard flooring or medium pile carpet. Now bearing that all in mind, there are some pros and cons when it comes to its cleaning performance, namely in comparison to its competitors, and here I was able to directly compare it to the Lupe Pure Cordless, which I was testing at the same time. And here the V11, either mode, because if you just think of them as kind of like a family rather than one or the other, they were snow plowing oats, which therefore means that if you've got larger size debris and you're using the torque head drive, it's going to plow some larger size debris in front of it, and even with multiple passes you'll find that sometimes it even gets stuck in small little crevices. Now, of course, with the V11 Outsize, you do get the soft roller head, and something that you can use, of course, for, well, harder flooring. In this respect, if you only have hard flooring in your apartment or house, then you will want to switch to the softer roller head, not only for basically flawless performance, both for larger size debris, but also for kind of finer debris as well. So it really depends on terms of your use case, but as I was doing a like-for-like comparison, I just used the regular torque head, and that's actually the one that I use normally for the V11. Moving on to carpet, and here it's always very hard for vacuum cleaners to really get into the piles of the carpet and get smaller oats which have kind of been ingrained in. And here, depending on the mode that you use, specifically if you're using on eco mode, both the V11 and even the Pure Loop Cordless struggle to get the smaller sized oats that were ingrained into my carpet. Now, the same could be said about flour as well, which is very fine debris, and in this respect, again, in the eco power modes, all vacuum cleaners kind of struggled. Now, as you progress through the different power ratings, it does improve in terms of cleaning performance, and specifically if you're going to do multiple passes, then you're not going to have an issue on the auto or the boost power modes on either the V11 or, in this respect, like let's say the Lupe Pure Cordless. Now, what was really a standout performer for the Dyson V11 range was edge cleaning, be it on carpet or indeed on hard flooring. I just found that the performance in terms of edge cleaning was flawless and very impressive, to say the least. And here is where it stood out in comparison to the Lupe Pure Cordless when I was doing my like-for-like tests, be it with small, finer debris or larger size debris. Of course, if you bear in mind that it does snowplow oats on hard floors, the Dyson vacuum cleaners do an excellent job. So whatever they've managed to achieve in this respect is definitely to be commended, and it makes for cleaning around the house a little bit more convenient in comparison to some of its competitors. And I still think to this date, I don't think there's a vacuum cleaner that can really compete in terms of edge cleaning in comparison to the Dyson V11 range. Now, on the whole, what I'm trying to say over here is that the Dyson V11 Outsize is pretty much absolutely identical to the Dyson V11, and it makes for an excellent cordless vacuum cleaner. It is, however, not the best. Aside from edge cleaning, I would say that the Lupe Pure Cordless is actually the better performer on the whole when it comes to just cleaning with a brush head, be it on hard flooring or carpet. And that's my verdict that I had on the Lupe Pure Cordless being arguably the best, well, the most powerful cordless vacuum cleaner that money can buy right now. Now, in this respect, should you buy the V11 Outsize given it some of its competitors? Well, to be honest, there's nothing really like the V11 Outsize purely in terms of its size. It is a larger cordless vacuum cleaner and arguably the best that Dyson has ever made. Reason behind that is, one, because it has a larger bin capacity, it has a larger brush head, which therefore covers more area when you're cleaning, meaning you don't have to do as many passes, and furthermore has a removable battery, which is for me a major sticking point, specifically when it comes to a longevity point of view. So it'd be nice to see that progressing throughout Dyson's line in the future, and removable batteries becoming kind of the norm. I would have liked if Dyson had made the trigger that you can actually enable it on a latch or just switch it on and just have it running rather than have to keep your hand on it. But really, that is my major complaint when it comes to design. Now, the V11 Outsize isn't going to be for everyone, because if you want better maneuverability, something that's lighter, or you've just got a smaller apartment or a place to clean, then you should consider the cheaper V11 or the Lupe Pure Cordless as alternatives to the V11 Outsize. But if you're looking for the largest or most capable cordless vacuum cleaner, then there's nothing better than the V11 Outsize, and as a result it gets my Best Buy award. Now, I'd be very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like this video, give it a like, subscribe to see more detailed, honest, independent reviews from the channel, and of course favourite and share, as it always helps the channel grow. I've been Totally Dubbed, take care of yourselves, and goodbye.